What's up guys, Asian here again with another Trials video, and this time we're going to be going over Vet Hel Ra Citadel, Vet HRC. This is a run that we did with Hellfire Dominion. We'll be showing you guys the healer perspective of this fight. Now Hel Ra, just a fair warning ahead of time, is fairly poorly optimized in terms of performance, so I do apologize in advance if my frames get very choppy during this video. It's just Hel Ra is, in terms of performance, is very poor. So this first part of Hel Ra, there really isn't any sort of any trash. You just run up to this bridge here. It's common practice, and then you normally sprint to a couple of places. You have a couple of options, and I've seen this done one of 3 different ways. So we're just going to be covering the one that I use, at least Hellfire Dominion uses. Now there are 2 other methods to use that I might be covering later on if I do a run with those guilds that use those strategies. This is the strat that we use, and this is the strat that I've actually seen being used most often. So that's just to hide underneath this statue's feet, right here, and then you just kill everything that comes up. Everyone basically stacks here, and this basically pulls most of the adds towards you. Now you can see there are a couple of adds that start walking up towards the first boss up the stairs. If you are the tank, you're going to want to chain one of them, and that'll just pull the entire group to you. So you just kind of want to hide in here until you kill enough of them that you can then start going out and kill off any of the stragglers. You do want to kill all of them before you head up to the next spot, just to make it a little bit easier to deal with the next ad pull. So the next ad pull here is pretty much all melee with a couple of archers in the back. If you're the tank, you just gotta run in there and just drop talons. If you have Magicka DPS, it's not a bad idea to drop 1 Destra ulti here, just to help speed things along. So you can see that there are kind of glowing circles on the ground. Those come from the, I believe they're called destroyers. Those circles will slow you if you are inside it, and they will also heal themselves and any other enemy that is within those circles. So you just want to get out of those if you can. There's nothing much you can do with about the healing though. The destroyers will target 1 random person with a beam of light. When you see that happen, you'll have an AoE around you. You just gotta back off. It deals more damage when it explodes if there are more people in that red AoE. So here you have 5 flame shapers you gotta worry about. You can see that one of them did end up, a couple of them are using their special move where they kind of make a twirling fire above their heads. When that happens, you just have to bash them or interrupt them using crushing shock, because otherwise the fire will hit everybody within range of the flame spinner. So you just want to make sure your stamina DPS are on point with their interrupts. Tank should also be interrupting. And if you have Magicka DPS, crushing shock will interrupt them at range. So that's kind of what you want to do there. So once you kill those 5 flame shapers, the first boss is going to spawn. He is Kotu. He comes with 3 adds. They're all melee. So basically what the tank is going to do is they should taunt Kotu first and then taunt the other adds. And he's going to face him either towards the gate where he comes out of, or some to the left towards that dead tree. Whichever direction you want to face, that's really up to the group. Most groups just face Kotu towards the gate. There are a couple of ways you can fight against Kotu. You can see the one that we have here is fairly disorganized. But what you basically want to do is he will throw his swords out like so. So you kind of want to situate yourself so you won't get hit by the swords. They will fly out typically in 90-degree angles from the boss, so you don't want to be standing directly to the left or the right of the boss or directly behind the boss. I believe he throws one behind him as well. You kind of want to be at slight off angles, so anywhere between 90 and 60 is perfectly fine. Now you can block when you see him do it. There's a very clear telegraph when he's going to throw out his sword, so you can just block and shield, and it shouldn't kill you. He does have a frontal cleave, so that's why the tank needs to face him away. He does have a heavy attack that the tank needs to block, and you can see he is making a couple of dust tornadoes throughout the fight. They do come up randomly, and whenever somebody dies, he also summons an extra tornado. And they will chase 1 random person around. You can see here that it is on top of me, and you just basically what you have to do is just gotta kite them around. Don't kite them into anybody. You just kind of want to kite them backwards or side to side. and then they'll pick another random person to fly to. They'll eventually disappear, but they will normally target 2 to 3 players before they disappear. Now, when Rocco 2 reaches 35% health remaining, that's when he's going to do one of his most devastating move, which is a spin move. There's a very clear telegraph when that happens. There is currently kind of a bug, and this affects all trials, not just Hel Ra, where the boss will seem like he's doing nothing on your screen, but actually he's doing a move. So that's kind of what happened there. There is a clear telegraph, though, for the spin move. If I see it, there it is. Basically, what you want to do there is you want to step out of that red AoE, because you will die if you are not the tank. The healers should be spamming heals on top of the tank when that happens. Or the tank, if you have Magma Shell, definitely use that during the spin to help survive. And you can see he creates a lot of new tornadoes, and he will create them all the time there, so that makes rezzing during this final phase fairly difficult to do. So you want to make sure everybody is alive during this phase here. So there will be, I believe, 6 tornadoes in total that he summons when he hits 35%, and once they disappear, he will resummon them all over again. Now, for this part, you're going to have to split into 2 separate groups with 6 people each. If you have Magicka DPS, they will need to go to the right door, which is the top group. Stamina DPS will need to go on the bottom, which the left. Typically, the healer with Mending is going to go to the left group on the bottom group, and the healer with Worm will go to the right or top group. So since I am the one wearing Mending, we'll be seeing the bottom group. If we run this again, I will re-record it and try to get to the top group, so I can show you guys how to deal with that boss, because the top group is generally the more difficult boss here. So for this first room here, there's going to be a couple of trash pulls that spawn. They will continually respawn until the top group pulls a lever. So normally the top group will run past all the ads that they have, and somebody will pull the lever. So if you pull the lever fast enough, they actually will not spawn these guys. So you can completely bypass these guys. But however, if they do happen to spawn, they will in fact continue to respawn. So what most groups do will have the tank take one of the melee ads and just bring them away. That just helps conserve resources for the DPS for the next room. So once the top group pulls the first lever, the gate will open and you move on to the second room. This room has 2 gargoyles that you have to defeat. So for the gargoyles, they have 2 moves that are dangerous and you have to avoid. The first one is a frontal stone breath that will petrify you. You need to break out of that. And the second move is he will do a ground pound around him that deals a lot of heavy damage. After 2 stone breaths, he will always do a ground pound right afterwards. So you see there, he did his second one, and that was his cue to go ground pound. Now there are 2 gargoyles. They will both spawn no matter what. If the top group does happen to hit the second lever before the second gargoyle spawns, you can actually walk through that gate, and the gargoyles are coded so they do not actually move past the gate, so you can just kind of stand there as the tank and just let him basically stand there and do nothing. He will still do his moves though, he will still do his breath and his ground pound, so just be aware of that. So you can see here we did pull the ads in the next room just for expedience purposes. So this next room here that we're going to be entering is the boss room. You're going to have to deal with 3 ad pulls first. This is the first one, and they each come with their own set of ads, and they all spawn in a fixed place. So once you know where they spawn, it's pretty easy for the tank just to chain the small ones in and taunt the war priests and the destroyers. The war priests are the ones with the sword and shields. They will throw out basically a reflective light. For some reason, it doesn't actually do damage over time. I have no idea what it does. It could just be an after effect from some discarded Templar skill when they rebalance the ability. So those are what the war priests do. They're not particularly dangerous. The destroyers are the ones with 2 hands. You can see there they are targeting. Right now you can see they're targeting me with that beam. I'm just going to block and shield through that and try to bring it away from the group, because like I said earlier, the more people that are within that beam, the more damage it will deal once it explodes, so you just want to avoid that. The armored Welwas actually have a cleave directly behind them, so you want to stand kind of to the 90 degrees away from the Welwas so you don't get kicked by their back hit. So you see that there are a lot of giant red AoEs falling down from the ground from the top. The top group will need to destroy some catapults, and once they destroy the catapults, that actually stops the red AoEs from falling down on the group. Now, because Hellfire Dominion is not necessarily a endgame guild, we're not necessarily going for scores or things like that. We're still sort of a quasi-progression guild when it comes to the Craglorns, and definitely for Maw and Hoff and things like that. The top group didn't quite manage to destroy the catapults fast enough, so we do have to deal with the AoEs for some time. Now this third spawn here, you have 2 Flame Shapers and a couple more Welwas to deal with. The tank can actually pull both Flame Shapers and stack them on top of each other. You just have to tank both of them and then pick one and just try to use distance and line of sight to put them together. What I like to do is like to taunt them and then hide behind one of the pillars you see right in front of us. That's kind of what I do when I tank this. Again, you just want to interrupt them when you see them using their special move there. Now once the last Flame Shaper dies, or this whatever the last ad is on that third ad pull dies, the bottom boss is going to spawn right away. Comes out of that gate there. So he comes with 2 Welwas at first, and they'll continue to spawn more Welwas the longer the fight goes on, so just want to be aware of that. So the boss himself is an archer, so he will plink you with arrows. He does have one special move, and that's basically he will throw a fire arrow down and just kind of spew out fire like you see there. Pretty easy to heal through. Nothing too much to worry about. Now, there are a couple of ways you can do this fight, but this is kind of the way that I've seen it done most often, and this is the way that most guilds will do it just because it's easier to DPS the boss this way. So these armored Welwas do, like I said earlier, have a cleave directly behind them, so the DPS, just make sure you're not standing directly behind a Welwa. The range on their cleave is actually fairly small, so you can be fairly far away from them and be alright. But basically what you want to do is, as the tank, is you want to taunt the Welwas and basically bring the Welwas up to the boss. Because what happens is when a Welwa dies, the boss will run to the Welwa's dead body and resurrect. So you can see there the Welwa died. He runs over to the body and begins to resurrect it. So basically what you have to do then as DPS is basically you cleave down the Welwas, you kill them, and then you basically manage to help keep the boss in one spot, and it really helps out for heals as well as just speeding up the entire fight process itself. Now the Welwas do have an enrage timer. When they reach that enrage timer, they will become enraged armored Welwas and deal more damage, and they will also pierce through your armor. And so when that happens, that's when the tank will want to definitely bring in the Welwas to the boss just so you can cleave them down and kill them. So that's kind of the strat that I've used most often. It's the strat that I've seen to have the most success, especially for people who are just learning how to do vet trials. You basically, as a healer, you just need to spam springs on top of people as they kill the Welwas and DPS the boss down. You can see here we're kind of doing something a little bit different. We're actually keeping the Welwas and DPSing the Welwas and letting the boss come to us, but you can do it the other way around. You can bring the Welwas to the boss and just DPS the boss and cleave them down there. So Welwas do continue to spawn as the fight goes on. You can see that we started with 2, now we have 3. Most groups will have no more than 5 Welwas. Once you hit 5 or 6 Welwas, that's kind of when it becomes particularly taxing on the tank, especially for heals, just because the Welwas do shatter your armor. So just keep that in mind if you are the healer. When you have 4 or 5 Welwas out, you just make sure to keep pretty heavy healing on the tank, just so you can him alive. So now we're just going to go ahead and skip past this boss. Top has their own thing to do. They have their own boss, which is generally regarded to be much more difficult than the bottom boss. So like I said earlier, once we redo Hel Ra again, I will show you guys, try to get on top and show you guys how you deal with that boss. That'll be in a separate video. But top group generally takes a longer time than bottom group, so there is going to be a lot of downtime here. So I'm just going to cut straight ahead to the next ad pull. Alright, so we are now through with the bottom and top groups. They've both killed their bosses. So you're going to go back here to this back part here in the next room. There is a single ad here, a single war priest. Most groups will use this to charge their ultimate for the next ad pull. Now, a fair bit of warning here. We do mess this up because somebody did the pull too early. So this is kind of an example of what not to do for this next pull. So you can see there's a horn behind me there. That horn is a usable item. When you use it, you'll blow the horn, and it'll summon all the ads that are directly in front of us to you. Now there is a way to blow the horn, get the achievement, and not actually have to deal with the ads. And what that involves is basically everybody sneaks by those two statues you see next to the horn. I'm going to go there right now. You can see if you are sneaking, everybody is sneaking right here. One person can blow the horn while in sneak, and that'll basically pull everything, but they will not be able to detect you and just go reset themselves. So that's how you use the horn, and it helps reposition the ads. It helps spawn the gargoyles, so the tank can pull the gargoyles away, as you will see when we finally get out of the wipe. So you can see here somebody blew the horn before we were ready, before the raid lead managed to call for it, and so now we have to deal with the ads. Now this is kind of what happens when you screw up that horn pull. So we got pretty upset at the end during this, so definitely don't do this. If you are going to use this horn method, everybody needs to be sneaking in those two corners before you pull the horn. There's not many things that I get angry about, but something like this is what I do get angry about when it comes to raids. Because as you can see there, you lose a healer, people start dying because it's just so many ad pulls, you have the gargoyles to deal with, that this is just not the way you're supposed to do things. If you are a part of a raid team, you need to listen to the raid lead. You can submit your ideas, you can, tell them when you think they're wrong, but ultimately the raid lead is the one who calls the shot. Do not blow the horn before he says everyone is ready. So we're just going to go ahead and skip ahead past this because this is not very interesting. This is kind of just what you should not do for this part of the fight. So now we've come back, we've respawned. So this is what things normally look like after you blow the horn and you successfully avoided pulling everything to you. You have those two gargoyles standing there, and you have the other ads there. So basically what you want to do is, as the tank, you want to pull those two gargoyles away, and then what most groups do is they drop all their Destro ultis pretty much at the foot of these stairs there, which will burn down the smaller ads and pretty much kill a lot of the larger ads as well. So there are going to be a bunch of flame shapers, a bunch of destroyers, a bunch of war priests. The priority is always going to be the flame shapers first. You just want to kill the flame shapers first. If you have a melee ad on you, just bring them over to the flame shaper and trust that your healer will keep you alive. That's just the way that this pull has to work. There will obviously be a couple of ads that will go after the tank. That's just the way the aggression works. They just target a random player. So when that happens, just don't worry about it. Just if there is a flame shaper that's targeting the tank, make sure you have a ranged DPS with crushing shock. Just keep an eye on the flame shaper and interrupt it when needed. As the flame shapers are gonna be what ends up killing you in this pull. If you don't kill them fast enough, then it's pretty much gonna be a wipe, especially when you have 3 or 4 of those flame shapers all doing their special move at once. So once you kill the gargoyles and the ads here, you can go on ahead and through the door and onto the warrior, which is the final boss here. Go ahead and kill that ad. Just gonna take time and loot things. There is a heavy sack over there by that brazier. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Brazier. That's how I pronounce it. So you enter the Hall of the Warriors. Now there's 2 chests and 2 heavy sacks here that you're going to want to loot. Unless you're going for score, of course, then you just ignore them and just go straight over to the warrior. There are 3 chests and 3 heavy sacks in the warrior room that you must, at least for the chest, you need to loot them before you pull the warrior. If you do pull the warrior before opening the chest, you will actually cause the chest to despawn because the way the game works, It recognizes the new room after he does his 35% starfall. The game recognizes that as a completely new room. So you need to loot the chests in the room before you pull the boss. So we're going to go ahead and skip ahead to when we actually pull the warrior here. Now if you are going to do a hard mode, you will have 3 statues here that you need to break in order to activate hard mode. So if you don't intend on doing hard mode, do not break the statues, because unlike in dungeons, hard mode is a one-shot deal. If you activate it, then you are in and you cannot reverse it. So we're going to go ahead and skip to our pull of the warrior. Alright, so this is the warrior pull. You can see we're standing in the blue circle. There's a corresponding yellow circle on the opposite side of the room from here. The blue circle increases all of our weapon and spell damage. The yellow circle over there will increase your health regen. So what you want to do basically is for the tank to tank the warrior basically right on the edge of the circle. You don't want him inside the circle, because that's how the warrior will also get that weapon damage boost as well. So you just want to tank him just barely outside that edge of the circle, so your melee DPS, if you have any, are able to hit him. So everyone else is going to stay within that circle except for one healer. The one healer is going to be standing where I'm standing right there, and basically is on tank duty to make sure to heal the tank through 1,000 cuts. Now there will be adds that spawn throughout the fight. The first set of adds will spawn at 20 seconds, and then additional adds will spawn every every 100 seconds afterwards, so a minute 40 seconds. So the second wave of ads will spawn at 2 minutes, the third one at 3 minutes 40 seconds, and so on and so forth. The ad spawns will always happen in this order. There will always be 2 destroyers first, then 2 flame shapers, and then the third ad spawn will be 2 flame shapers and 2 destroyers, and then it will repeat itself. The fourth one will be 2 destroyers, fifth one will be 2 flame shapers, and the sixth one will be 2 destroyers and 2 flame shapers. The seventh set of ad spawns is going to be, I believe it's 8 destroyers. So there is kind of a hard DPS check there, because most groups will not actually be able to survive against a warrior and 8 destroyers. So the warrior has a couple moves you want to watch out for in this first phase here. There is a move known as 1,000 Cuts. Basically the tank needs to permablock that. You can't possibly survive that without blocking, and he needs to have a healer heal him through that damage. There's no way for a tank to survive that without some sort of help from the healer, whether that's through a couple of healing springs, an orb, or breath of life. Now I have managed to survive it before using liberal use of my shields and green dragon blood, but it's just a lot easier on the tank in terms of sustain, just for the healer to just spam healing springs on him once you hear that 1,000 Cuts move. There's a very clear audio cue for that. The second move that you've seen several times now is a shield throw. He basically throws his shield like a boomerang down a certain line. It's always going to target one random person in the group, so if you guys are all stacked up, he'll only throw it at one into your group, and it's just very easy. You just sidestep it, and then that's it. It will hit you twice, once when it goes in, and then again when it comes back out. Or once when it goes out, and then again when it comes back in. He will also do a jump move. He will jump to one random person. You can see there. There's 2 red circles. The inner one will deal more damage than the outer one, obviously, and that does become more important for hard mode, but that's going to be reserved for a different video. So when the flame shapers spawn, it's a good idea for the DPS for one of them or a couple of them to move over to the opposite pool, just so they can focus that one down. Just makes it easier. So at 35%, you enter what's called Starfall phase for the warrior. Any ads that are currently out will be destroyed, and you will no longer have to deal with ads. During this phase, he gains a couple of extra moves, but they're pretty much more or less the exact same. He still has his 1,000 Cuts, it's just a different audio cue, and here is the special move called Starfall. Basically, you see there, he will rain down on everybody, and you have an AoE around you. So if that AoE is touching you, you will damage people around you as well. So you just want to avoid overlapping those red AoEs, and you basically want to block and shield through it. There are strategies involved where you, if you're positioned correctly, you can actually heal through that Starfall. But I don't recommend doing that if you're just learning the trial itself. That's more for speed runs and score runs themselves. So he will do Starfall every, I believe it's every 25 seconds at least. So you just want to be aware of that and just kind of preempt that in advance. So he still has his 1,000 cuts, and 1,000 cuts still has the cleave, so you don't want to be standing in front of him. He doesn't have his shield throw anymore. Instead, he will do what we call a Dawnbreaker, which does the exact same thing, except it hits only once and knocks you down and deals more damage. And then the last thing that he does is that he has kind of a small conal sweep move that he does. It's kind of random when he does it. It's different from 1,000 cuts, so you don't want to be standing in front of the boss, but he will kind of do that randomly, and so you don't want to be standing too close to the boss during this phase, just so you don't accidentally get hit by that random cleave move. He will still jump to random people from time to time, just not as often as the first phase, so that's something to be aware of as well. But the main thing to be concerned about is Starfall, so you do want to do a loose stack. Don't spread out too much because it makes it more difficult for the healers to heal you. And then from there, you just make sure you're not overlapping any red AoEs. So that's basically it for the Warrior. That's it for Vet HRC. This is non-hard mode, obviously. On hard mode, there are a lot more mechanics to have to deal with, and that's going to be reserved for a different video. So hope you guys found this video informative. Please let me know down in the comments if you have any questions, and I will see you guys in the next dungeon.